Anyway, let's get ready to hop into game as we're finally ready to get underway with this mirror matchup. Sorry, I puked a little there. We don't like mirror matchups, do we, folks? Because you're just going to watch two people do the same thing. But you know what it is good about mirror matchups, folks? It means that you get to see the best of the best, the creme de la creme. Who is going to be just that little bit better? Because they have to be. Because you're probably going to be doing a lot of the same for at least the opening of the game. As we're going to have Ciamgyic playing in the blue and Don Artie in the west playing as the red.
And as much as the execution is going to be vital in this matchup, for French mirrors, it's even more important how your map looks like at the beginning, because it all comes down to how much you can control your gold mine. First couple of knights coming in, you get pushed off from your gold, and it's just a downward spiral from that point on. So looking at Don Arties' gold spot over here in front of his base as compared to the one from Ciamgyic behind, you gotta wonder if Ciamgyic is starting from a massively advantageous position over here.
It is at least condensed next to the tree line, right? So there's some argument about like additional outpost value to cover multiple elements of your eco. And I will say that as the game goes on, Don Artie has a double fallback on the gold, right? So like, although it looks grim to begin with, it actually improves drastically as the game goes on. Meanwhile, when you look at Ciamgyic's gold positioning, I feel like his fallback gold vein really isn't like it's not as much a fallback for your base as a fallback and get off the map entirely, right? It's so far away from his base. And that's where those kind of pocket economies we talked about, where French players get greedy, could actually stab Ciamgyic right in his own back. I think Ciamgyic, for me, is powerful for the first 10-15 minutes. And then I think in terms of geographically, Don Artie has the potential to accelerate ahead more comfortably in that mid-late game when we start talking about Castle Age.
Looking at the sheep department, Ciamgyic is able to secure quite a bit of a sheep here. Following a scout, he actually had the second scout for that, so he's going to have a pretty decent amount of herdables to work with. Whereas on the other side, Don Artie seems to be quite low on the sheep department. He only has like 3 carcasses underneath the town center, and there is 3 more sheep coming in with that 1 scout. Obviously, the fact that he didn't add a second scout means that he's working with 1 extra villager over his opponent, so there is going to be a slight eco advantage, there is going to be a slight timing advantage with Feudal Age. But the extra amount of sheep you work with here for Ciamgyic could be immensely valuable, because we are talking about this matchup in the context of safety for your resources. It looks like Don Artie actually had the second scout here, so it turns out he was just somewhat more unlucky finding sheep.
I was going to mention, he didn't actually do as well. Like, when you look at the fog situation as well, it's the areas he chose to check. He didn't check his back corner, which I think actually had 4 or 5 sheep in to begin with, so he missed out on a huge influx right next to his own base. And that's something that Ciamgyic actually snuck in on like a snake straight away. Really did pay dividends for him. But it's interesting you mentioned like that whole kind of protection of resources underneath your TC, definitely going to be important here. And also, by extension, when you look at this kind of layout with the wood lines, Ciamgyic should be able to actually create a safety barrier much easier. Don Artie, something I mentioned, like the 10-15 minute mark suffers, past that is fine. One of the other important details to highlight and why it feels a lot harder and a lot bigger of a struggle for him to play the first 10-15 is he doesn't have that natural bridge point, right, between 2 wood lines. Look where they are. They're so far apart, like you're not going to wall this, right, to protect it. When you look at Ciamgyic, he can create a small wall area here. It's a nice little fallback point where he could actually have some farmlands. He could easily have plenty of wood. And more importantly, if Artie comes to raid him, he's going to have to move double the distance to get to the other side of the base.
Absolutely. And strictly speaking, he could even wall off to the edge of the map here using this forest, securing all the food behind his base, securing the gold as well. So it's a very well defendable base here for Ciamgyic, as we do have Don Artie building that School of Cavalry 3 villas. There's 4 on it for Ciamgyic, but Ciamgyic started a little later, so the 2 players should reach Feudal Age at approximately the same time.
That's important to remember. You get these reduced values when you add more villages as well, right? Like it's very easy to think that this is just going to be 2 times, 3 times the build speed. It doesn't work that way. It's like diminishing returns the more villages you have on. So while he is building it slightly quicker than Don Artie, it's not, you know, a 25% increase or whatever, 33% increase in speed. It's more like, you know, if it was meant to be 33%, it'd be more like 20, 25%. And it means that you're also sacrificing a villager somewhere else in your early game economy. And that's where Artie should look a little bit more healthy on some of these numbers.
Ciamgyic is harassing those gold miners a tiny bit here. Without animation cancel, that scout isn't able to do much, but this is actually more important than it looks like initially, because one thing that you do is weaken these villagers, making it much more viable for knights to kill them with just 1 charge. Like, if you weaken that villager to like 31 or 28 HP, you could just charge in and kill the villager immediately. So it's actually a good use of that scout, weakening the villagers, allowing your knights to be able to pick them off a little easier.
I especially like it when you're playing non-French Civ, just because, like, say you're playing Rus with early Knights, they struggle a lot more compared to the French Knights. The French Knights, on the other hand, get juiced up, right? Once they complete a charge, for 3 seconds afterwards, they do bonus damage, which is why they seem to just be so trivial at dispatching the poor little peasantries. But looks like with the first Knight coming out from Artie, he'll finally scare off those scouts, but damage kind of already done. And if you're ever wondering why a scout is so ineffective at killing a villager, all you have to do is watch their attack animations. They miss their axe when they swing a lot. It's genuinely like watching someone play D&D and rolling natural ones. It's pretty disastrous. Looks like he's going to be scared away. He actually tanked the full brunt of that lance, so Ciamgyic should be able to keep him in check for the moment. But not able to keep vision out of his base. You can see Artie did sneak in one of these scouts, so he has an idea what the layout is and who is working where and how many people working with each resource for Ciamgyic. And also Spearman coming out. This has been a big change, actually, for France. Something that I think a lot of people were kind of scratching their head and surprised at when it first started occurring is the racks drop early on. Something that was just taboo when the game first released. It was always Knights into Archers. Now, all of a sudden, we're seeing a lot of Spearmen start to make their way into the composition for France.
Indeed. We already have Spearman coming out. The risk of doing Spearman is that it allows your opponent to go for Knights and Archers, and Knights and Archers is generally a better composition than Knights and Spearman. But for now, Don Artie is playing quite defensive all the way back at home. Barracks also being added by Ciamgyic out there.
Yep, and it's a secondary racks for Artie. Now, the interesting part about this is it means he'll be able to actually have a defensive army to just protect his eco from Knights roaming. But at the same time, he should have enough Spearmen that he might be able to put together an attack force of Knights and Spears. And I don't know if he actually spotted out that this Rax was dropped by Ciamgyic, but when he goes back into the base and gets eyeballs on that, he's actually going to feel very comfortable about his opening build.
Indeed, looking at the map control here, we're going to have Don Artie moving out for that hunt. That is a very risky move over here. But given the fact that he's playing very defensive, this might actually pay off because in comparison to his opponent, he doesn't have to invest into professional scouts. Ciamgyic has gotten professional scouts and he's ferrying in the carcasses as we speak.
And this is all part of Artie's move to the secondary racks, right? It's to enable him doing this so that he actually has the bulk of infantry to defend these far out locations. I expect Artie to be playing a lot more aggressive with his eco as the game goes on. You're going to see a lot more of these pocket ecos. He might even try to sneak the southern one if he's quick enough before Ciamgyic gets in there with scouts. But probably just going to be this one area due to the fact, as you said, Ciamgyic does have the pro scouts who can quickly snatch up all the carcasses. In the meantime, we're right in on the back from Artie. Does snipe out 2 of the villagers after wrapping in with 2 of these knights. But there's going to be a similar attack. It's not going to be as effective, though. Spearman in location will scare Ciamgyic away.
Indeed, and we talked about this. This is a very snowballing mirror, so even just 2 villagers' advantage is something you can already build on. And as you said, this attack was just a little more effective here for Don Artie. He's also able to control the berries of his opponent. Now Spearmen are out for Ciamgyic to protect that gold mine. But now Don Artie is playing from an advantageous position. And as you said, because his opponent is going for Spearman, him going double barracks defensive Spearman could work out very effectively here. Absolutely.
And you can just see how he's kind of keeping his opponent in check around this deer expansion, right? With just 5 Spearmen, that's enough to keep your opponent entirely away. And there's not really anything else in your economy exposed. It's just the gold line and the deer. If you ever have to try and dive in for these people gathering on the TC or this wood line, you're probably going to instantly get punished because Spearmen are probably going to be positioned close by, and that wraparound is very predictable. As you can see that now Ciamgyic is committing to it, going on the wide side.
Indeed, Knights are now moving in here from Ciamgyic, and this could be the retaliation that he needs. One goes down, a second one is going to go down. Slow reaction here from Don Artie, not even noticing his villagers getting absolutely slaughtered.
He's just getting butchered. That move. Artie, I'm surprised he moved both groups of Spearmen up, and now look, he was moving out onto the berry bush line, gets sniped out there as well. Full garrison going to come out, as the Knights are going to hang around and snipe out even more villagers. Big mistake made by Artie, as he has not got his finger on the vein, doesn't actually spot out what's happening at all, and gets caught out in multiple economy spots in his own base.
And now the lack of mobility for the Spearman is showing, because part of the reason why those Knights work so well when it comes to raiding is that you can use that mobility to try and find a couple of villagers to kill. Don Artie is trying to wall himself up as the Knights once again come back. There might be another chance for a villager kill, and indeed there is.
Oh my god, yeah, this is just getting ridiculous. Artie, this move would have made sense if he left a few spear here, but he gets greedy. Shifting his Spearmen across so soon means these walls never got completed and now are still not complete after losing several villagers to try and get them down. And while that's happening, while you're going to go and chase away these Knights to the east, Look what's wrapping in from the west again. The Raider boys are back. Ciamgyic's going to snipe in again, this time under the wood line. Artie might be hemorrhaging even more villagers in the blink of an eye, as he's still chasing across map with his spearmen and knights. There it is, straight in. Snipes one, might even get a second one. Almost makes it free, and now Artie trailing by 6 villagers to that of Ciamgyic. And Artie
Here's the counterattack from Artie.
He has to go, right? Like, he understands that that is such a big loss that he has to use this force he's bulked up.
Yeah, but this is going to be difficult because most of his army is spearmen that will just get cleaned up by the town center fire. The knights do come in here, but as we discussed, there's just not enough beef into this army here for Don Artie.
No, and you can see how he's just being rebutted by these spears. He can't get through the choke point. Nice usage of the house and the outpost to block Artie entirely out, and his army is hemorrhaging quickly. Most of the spearmen are gone, but most of the knights are as well, and that's the one that's going to snipe out these villages. These spears are not quick enough, and as you said, under the TC will be sniped far too fast, and it means that Artie has to back away. But meanwhile, Ciamgyic...
And behind this one, he's coming back. He's coming back with the knights on the berries.
He's watching it as well. Oh no, Artie. He's got 1 spearman here, but these knights should be able to clean up 2, maybe 3 before they give their life. It looks like they didn't get the charge off, though. They will look to at least finish off the spear, but it looks like instead, Ciamgyic is going to lose both of the knights to a single spearman. Give that man a captaincy. He's earned it. He's earned some sort of promotion for that work there.
And Ciamgyic also lost considerable numbers back at home, so while he does have a 5 villagers lead at this point, the army numbers are somewhat concerning for him, only counting 6. So this is the window for Don Artie to strike, and he's been successful hitting that gold mine before. It's completely undefended right now, so now is the time to strike for Don Artie. He needs to, because he's behind in villagers, as you said, but he currently has the military advantage, so he's got the chance to compensate for it, as Ciamgyic decides to go into Castle Age with the guild hall.
This is incredibly greedy. The question is whether Artie has enough troops to actually punish this. He might. His knights are wrapping round in position now to the gold line. And they're not seen. They're in the fog. They're finally going to reveal. And they can easily snipe the people building this up as well. So they'll jump onto the village. They're going to force them off of the construction of the guild hall as well, delaying Ciamgyic's timing as the knights will dive in deeper. Looks like he's a little bit paranoid, though. He doesn't know where the spears are, but he's going to wrap in with his own spears from the south this time, deep into the economy lines. Force the engagement out of the spears. He could re-engage with the knights, but no, Artie continues to back off. He's going to allow this upgrade to go through, and Artie is nowhere near ready to upgrade himself. And this might have been a mistake. He'll lose his forces on the south.
Yeah, that's a disaster.
Yeah, and look at his base. He's being sniped again. Artie, he seems so indecisive about what he wants to do in this game, and Ciamgyic is just dancing circles around him. Oh my.
This is so difficult right now for Don Artie because he's trying to push, but with the tower being nearby, it just helps so much to protect those villagers, and the extra firepower helps immensely. So Ciamgyic is able to hold this one. As you said, he's coming back to snipe a couple more villagers, but ultimately the key thing is that he's going up to Castle Age, whereas Don Artie isn't.
No, and Artie, like, he's in an awkward situation because now, even if he chooses to try and save up to boost up into Castle, what is he going to be sacrificing, right? That military army he just lost. In fact, if you look at the count, there's only 3 military units difference now between these two sides. But there's going to be a whole age difference between them in the blink of an eye.
And that age difference could open up a bunch of things here, including access to potential men-at-arms, because if Don Artie is very heavy on the spearman department, men-at-arms is your appropriate answer, but more importantly, arbaletier is something that Ciamgyic could think about. He's just now adding a blacksmith over here, but Don Artie's window seems to be closing. He's not super far away from Castle Age, but he's going to need to wait at least a minute or 2 more, and that's going to give a massive power spike here for Ciamgyic.
Yeah, this food gathering on the deer is what's going to save him, as long as it doesn't get scouted out. But Ciamgyic, oh no. The outpost hasn't even been built yet. And if Ciamgyic wraps south after seeing this wall, he will spot out the economy expansion, and that might just shot Artie out entirely. And he's going down towards the south now. It's just a question of whether he wraps on the tree line or heads further south and suspects that something's happening with the deer.
You can always anticipate your opponent taking the hunt in one way or another, so you can just probe it with 1 or 2 knights every once in a while. Those knights are also veteran now, so their charge is even more deadly, as Don Artie will be forced off from the gold mine temporarily by just 2 knights. And that's just going to slow down his Castle Age progress even more, because he has to run back and forth between his town center. As you said, he's very lucky that this hunt down south wasn't spotted.
Most definitely. I think Ciamgyic, it's kind of weird that he didn't scout that either, considering the fact that he never saw deer carcasses underneath the TC, right? So he doesn't anticipate his opponent has gone for pro scouts. He hasn't really seen any scouts. So you have to assume that if your person's your opponent is able to keep up on the food is because he's out on the deer. So a missed trick there for Ciamgyic means that Don Artie will be able to start teching up, and it is going to be the Royal Institute. A popular play when you're behind in a French-on-French matchup. It means that he'll be able to catch up, and he'll get superior tech researchers that Ciamgyic will not have access to in the Castle Age.
That's a very interesting landmark to age up with. Not something that you commonly see in 1v1s, and it's really the all-in Castle Age type of landmark, because that allows you to grab the Royal Bloodlines upgrade in Castle Age at a discount, which is a massive power spike, but it pretty much becomes obsolete in Imperial. So Don Artie knows that he needs some sort of boost here for his Castle Age gameplay. The problem is that whatever he's grabbing on that landmark is not going to work well against Spearmen. Like, Gambesons for the Arbaletier, not really relevant over here, and if he just goes heavy cavalry, like Knights with Royal Bloodlines, that will still be slaughtered by Spearmen.
Most definitely, but I understand why he's doing it. It's a comeback landmark. Whenever we see it, it's because you're behind. And I think if he did go into a guild hall, he's just admitting he's behind. He is reaching that point we talked about. Look, he's on the gold veins behind his base now. This is where Artie potentially has this comeback window in 5 minutes. He has very safe economy to access, and it looks like he's going to actually sneak out on the southern side before his dangerous economy gets spotted by Ciamgyic Spearmen. And because it's Spearmen, there'll be no chase down, there'll be no repercussions, and Artie will get his 16 villagers away to safety.
That is a massive, massive save there for Don Artie. Like, if those were Knights, he would have lost 5, 6, 7 villagers easily, as he is coming in right now with the Royal Bloodlines for his cavalry. So Ciamgyic needs to be very heavy on the Spearman or Arbaletier department, but one thing that could work for Don Artie is Mangonels and Knights, because that could be pretty deadly against this composition. Villager count is pretty much even over here, as we have Blacksmith already up for Ciamgyic. French also get the attack upgrades for free on the Blacksmith, so just by having that Blacksmith, you already have that for both your Knights and your Spearmen. This is the time to retaliate for Don Artie.
And Artie, he's playing around that time you're talking about. He's riding in deep with the Knights now. Small force to respond to him, but only 3 spears here. He realizes it's only 3 spears and turns around to attack, but it means he doesn't get a charge out. He didn't want to get rooted. He has enough troops here to cleave through what is standing in front of him. We'll move on to the Arbaletiers as well with a few of these Knights and scare them away. He needs more troops on the front right now. He's repelling an attack in the north because the Knights did wrap in onto his berry bush line at the back of his base. In the meantime, he'll run deeper looking for more villagers, but he can't find them. They're all garrisoned in or safely at the northern side of Ciamgyic's base.
Spearmen go all the way back home here for Ciamgyic. Now he's the one lacking mobility, so he's the one struggling to clean up those Knights to a certain extent. And you're going to see more and more Knights appearing on the battlefield here for Don Artie. Currently, with one stable and the School of Cavalry working for him, you get the feel that Don Artie is slowly recovering.
We get the feeling that Artie's close to being in full recovery. Look what he might scout out. He's a little bit too late to move across. Can he still do the damage? He moves in with the Knights, but doesn't stop off for too many of the villagers. Turns around to clap down 2 or 3 of them, but we need to back away as the Spearmen will arrive. There was a missed opportunity there. If he'd gotten that a little bit sooner, we're talking 5, 6, maybe even 7 dead villagers, but instead has to back away. And because it's a slow static force of Spearmen, they can't keep up, and he's moving back towards the goal line. Artie looking for a charge in, but once again he mistimes it. He doesn't get the Lancers off, and it means he needs to back away as more Spearmen arrive. But don't worry, folks. He isn't done. Although there's a wall to the north, there is also a pocket economy of Ciamgyics, and this time, third time might be the charm, as Artie is about to get eyeballs on that, and as he sees the mill, maybe he'll chase in. There it is. He sees the villagers.
Look at the jukes there for Ciamgyic, though.
He can't get the charges off every time. Oh my god. Tripped up 3 times in a row. They're still holding their Lancers, wondering why the hell they carried them all the way from home, because they never get to use them.
Oh, that was an absolutely beautiful juke from Ciamgyic. He was running south, then turned to the north, and there was not a single villager that was killed. And he did that without Textos. It's still base 50 HP on those villagers. That was an absolutely exceptional defense over there. The good news for Don Artie is that I think he managed to even this game out here, and that's the best thing that he could hope for. But that was just an absolutely marvelous defense there from Ciamgyic, as he's coming in with the Vows just like Don Artie.
Yeah, I mean, educational lesson, folks. If you want to not die to Knights, run into them. Like, Daddy, you're home, because they can't get their charge off. That was the crippling detail. Artie, because he doesn't have a scout in the mix here, and I think this is a crime, he doesn't have the vision, the heads up to be able to get a charge out. By the time he sees his opponent, if they move towards him, his Knights aren't putting down their Lancers in time. But he's going in again. This time he knows what he's looking for. However, this time Ciamgyic is wise to it. He spots it out, and now all of a sudden, look at the walling. Artie's trapped in, and I don't think he ever spotted the palisades to the north, so he has to commit. He'll head straight towards the main base. A lot of villagers he could snipe out here. And there it is. Looks to clap a few of them down. Snipes out 1 or 2. The Spearman now arriving. Don Artie needs to back away or we're losing 2 of the Knights. Almost 2. I say that. 1's on 2 health. He's basically dead at this stage, right? He's on his deathbed. He's writing his final will and testament. And although Artie might think he's going to escape, he's in for bad news. Look at the walling going down. Artie, no! He doesn't block it. He has no way out if he goes south here. He has to go through the central base. Instead, he's going to turn around the villagers, but the Spearmen are now arriving. They're trying to juke and jive away, but he's starting to pin himself into a corner. And it means he's going to have to
That's a
sacrifice
very
more.
juicy corner with so many villagers inside there, and that is just an absolute slaughter fest.
Oh my god, so many. I mean, at this stage, Artie maybe he just accepts. He's like, I'm going to die. I might as well take out what I can. But instead, he's so fixated on survival that he's not min-maxing his damage. We'll keep backing away.
Yeah, indeed. If he just commits against the Vills, this would have been way better. He could have taken down so much more, but now
Oh my god,
he's just trying to
gonna get
save
him
his
out, though.
army.
Look at what he's doing on the other side of the mill. He's standing his ground. He's cleaving for a bunch more of these villagers. Still only 50 health, no textiles. The Mangonel will finally come out, and finally Artie's army will be slayed. But the question is, what's the damage? Was it worth it? And have you got a secondary army waiting? Because you know that Ciamgyic is starting to ride these knights out to counterattack and punish you the same way.
While the villager count tells us the story, it's right now 12 villagers lead for Don Artie. And he did that by losing 5 or 6 villagers on his own gold mine. There was one knight killing villagers left and right, so this was at least 15, 16 villagers killed in the end. So now, Ciamgyic is the one forced to make a move here.
Wow. This game swings and roundabouts right now, and Ciamgyic, I like his attempt to get these walls down, but we're starting to see the nature of these static armies and how they suffer. They're not able to gap close time and time again. Don Artie, understanding. You could probably just imagine if we had comms, it would just be him laughing evilly the whole time like a gremlin. Because that's all he was doing. He was just mischievous in the back of the base there. And it also has a knock-on effect. Because Ciamgyic is dancing around his own base, he's never aggressing on the other side, except for that one knight you mentioned that he had in. Imagine if he had like 3-4 more of these knights running rampant through Don Artie's economy. And instead, now he's going to try to do that. But it is going to be slow, and it might allow time for Artie to respond.
Indeed. Behind this one, there's a couple of knights trying to bash their way to the right side, but the big fight is about to happen here, and currently Don Artie is the one lacking numbers. Against all the Spearman and Arbaletier, this is going to be a very difficult hold to make happen.
Yep. But look, he's waiting for them to break off. He's trying to bait them away to expose the Arbaletiers. Ride through. They need to find the backside of this economy. Artie has a lot of static and exposed villages at the back here on the farmlands. They're not showing themselves just yet. In the meantime, Artie is now going to wrap north into the base of his opponent. With this contingent of knights, they're done trying to go for the palisade. Instead, they'll just wrap round where Ciamgyic has still not walled off. And it means that Ciamgyic is also going to do the same. Straight under the gold line, and look how many injured villagers there are here from Artie. Because of that last knight that was here. It's going to force a response out of Artie. In the meantime, they dive underneath the TC, stacking on top of everything here. Going to force the wood line back. They need a garrison point. They need a fallback point. They just don't have the front line to hold right now. They're going to try and wrap with a weaker force on the left side. They're going to back off deeper into the economy at the back of their base, but it means that you are forfeiting your primary base entirely. You have no real food gathering anymore as all your farmlands have been shut down.
Yeah, he's just forced to run for his life over here, and it's going to be difficult to clean up. But behind this one, he's also cleaning a lot from Ciamgyic on his gold mine. So both sides losing a ton of villagers, and when the dust settles, the army numbers are getting close. And if you look at the villager count, even though Don Artie lost a ton, he also managed to compensate for that very effectively.
He did, and it's the power of this TC. Just look how much damage it's doing these spearmen. These spearmen that are still running around underneath it. Ciamgyic, yes, you're burning down the farms, but you're also cutting off your supply of troops very quickly. And once you split them up like this, look what the knights do! Ciamgyic, he went away with the spearmen. It means they can move in with the knights and clean up on the Arbaletiers as well as the man-at-arms. Spearman will finally move back across, but the damage is still being done in Ciamgyic's base as Don Artie continues to run deeper into the blue French economy and still keeps his knights alive at home as he peels off all the Arbaletiers but one, gets rid of a chunk of the man-at-arms, and there is only 3 spearmen left here for Ciamgyic.
Yeah, that is just a serious, serious problem. This is going to get cleaned up eventually. And Ciamgyic is doing his best here to try and take those knights down. But behind this one, Don Artie is setting his food eco back on track here. He also has the board down south to work with, and he also has some relics. So even though he had a lot of idle time, he's able to compensate for that very nicely.
Yeah, and it's unlikely this is going to get spotted because all the attention is on the north side now. Ciamgyic, he sees all this exposed economy. He's going to want to keep playing towards it, right? He's not going to obsess over the southern side anymore. When he last went down there, he saw how few deer were left. So we would never expect Artie to return to the southern side. And it means that Artie can easily predict Ciamgyic's movements and also continue to outmobilize it. And this is the one move that Ciamgyic has that can maybe make a difference. Mangonels are starting to roll out now. The problem is he's still primarily up against these Knights, and Knights are very hard to hit with rocks.
That is 100% true. And the thing is that while you do have the Arbaletry, if you don't have enough Spearmen, it's very difficult to brace against the charge, and the Arbaletry will just die so easily to those Knights. Looking at the force of Ciamgyic, this is a scary force, but it's not something that's impossible to stop for Don Artie. And there's a chance that Don Artie will just avoid this fight and go straight towards the eco of Ciamgyic that is just so exposed in all directions.
Bye, have a good time. They're going to have a good time quicker than you, though. Artie's forces are definitely going to reach your base before you're in position. Oh, and all these pocket eco buildings, the mills and everything everywhere, right? They're just essentially scouting locations as well, so you can see Ciamgyic coming. And now the wood line has been depleted. Ciamgyic, he just created a new opening into his base. And Artie came to say hi. Here's your moving in present. It's a very long stick. If you just like to hold it in your chest. Little villager 1, 2, 3, and 4. As they will fall. The spearmen are not good enough. The knight is not good enough. And this difference in health, 310 health on each of these knights, really has paid off in the last several minutes. And we're seeing it again. But this time, Ciamgyic trying to go in with a more definitive force with a Mangonel this time. Villagers backing away. Mangonel chasing in, but no vision right now. Not able to stay in range long enough that they can attack onto the villagers. Finally going to actually go and throw out some boulders now. Decent damage done, but they're going to retreat towards the TC, and they might make it out of range before a second shot comes out from the catapult. And they'll only pick off one villager as a result. They'll get inside the TC. They'll hold their ground. In the meantime, back on the goal line at the back of Ciamgyic's base. Sniping out the remnants of the villagers, cleaning up what little military force and presence is here from Ciamgyic. And next thing you know, Artie is going to start diving that TC again.
He has to, because there's just no one else left to kill at this point.
Oh, Artie, the wall play. The wall play? Come on. No, he's not going to do it. He doesn't get... There it is. He finally triggers it. It's a little bit too late. He didn't get in the stealth forest. If he'd done that sooner, he probably would have picked off the army even cleaner. But nonetheless, it buys enough time. Artie wraps from the south, cleans up the remnants of Ciamgyic's vanguard, and all of a sudden, Ciamgyic with only 13 military units. Artie, for the first time in several minutes, now has a bigger army.
Ciamgyic is able to retaliate on that gold mine quite effectively, but as you said, those knights just keep running underneath that town center, and they're so tanky that they can take reasonable engagements against all those spearmen. And slowly but surely you see Ciamgyic's forces getting cleaned up. Don Artie was able to snipe that Mangonel, failed with the Vololo, but still ends up cleaning up all the forces of Ciamgyic, and when you take a tally at the end, you just see a 15 villagers difference in the favor of Don Artie. That has been there for the last 10 or so minutes.
Yeah, and now he's building a bigger military. He's building it up quicker as well. It just feels like Ciamgyic is slowing down, and the reason he's building it up quicker as Don Artie is because of that economy you mentioned, right? That's where you start to translate it. And now with man-at-arms coming out from Artie, he understands that he has enough knights in the field. He just needs a composition force at this stage. And if he has some of these man-at-arms in position, these spearmen become irrelevant. And it's more or less all Ciamgyic can really afford to go for anymore. I think he stopped with the Arbaletiers because they've started to become a hard liability. You see how easily they get picked apart in these fights because of the way he's trying to aggress and he splits his forces too much because there's so much of Artie's base he has to cover.
And the moment you just get rid of the Arbaletier, the men-at-arms become increasingly relevant against all those spearmen. So not only do you have knights with 300 HP, you also have men-at-arms that will take down the spearmen. Gotta love the move from Ciamgyic to hide a knight close to that big gold mine down south, but he actually moved away before he spotted those gold miners. That could have been a nice way to retaliate. There are just so many exposed villagers all across the map here, but ultimately neither of the sides are really taking advantage of that.
No, but Artie, like, the way he's exploiting this is always northern and central, right? Notice that Ciamgyic is never looking south anymore, and Artie's the only one taking advantage of that, as they're going to fight in the center here. And this looks good for Artie. The extra health on these horsemen, on these knights, means they last so long even against the spears. Man-at-arms now arriving to start to clean up those spears, and he's got enough knights surviving this that afterwards, Artie can easily plow towards Ciamgyic's base.
Yeah, this is a deciding fight over here. And Ciamgyic is just losing all his numbers over here. He's down to 5 army. He didn't have the numbers to take this fight, and now that power spike of extra HP is just coming in so clutch. Don Artie not only has an extra villagers right now, he also has 4 relics and a sacred site under his control.
Have a look at the current resources right now and scratch your head and say, like I do.
That has to be the guild hall. That has to be the guild hall.
But surely you need something else more at this point. This is a point of diminishing returns, Lidakor.
I think he needed something more, and that was food. And he was like, okay, oh shoot, I forgot about my guild hall. I'm just going to pull off my board and start setting it on food, but it's just a little too late. And
Just build a
like,
marketplace. Just trade this. It's so much.
it's that point in the game where you can just buy an entire army with this. Like, no matter what you do, and indeed he's buying food like a madman. Imagine that this pops out like 2 minutes earlier. Oh, that's ridiculous.
Oh my goodness. Imagine the extra siege, or imagine the extra knights, the extra production, extra anything. It just felt like Ciamgyic. I don't know if he wanted to play Age of Empires or set up his own bank at this stage. I don't know. I guess he's like, you know what, Age of Empire players, they don't make a lot as a living. I can make more as a Swiss banker, because it feels like that's all he's been doing with his gold. He finally starts to convert it, but maybe the damage is just done. I mean, Artie, he essentially just rolls in every once in a while and asks for tribute of blood, and there's nothing that Ciamgyic can do but oblige.
And now there's just no map control left for Ciamgyic. He's running out of resources inside his base, and villagers are just going down left and right. It is just a consistent 20 villagers lead at this point for Don Artie, and the more concerning thing right now for Ciamgyic is that Don Artie's army is increasing in numbers as we speak. Ciamgyic's eco is not looking great. In fact, it's so bad that he was gathering -0 wood per minute.
He doesn't need it. Just buy it. It's fine. Oh, wait. The reserves are running out. Damn, it's looking bad. Artie looking to clean up even the spearman with the knights. He doesn't care anymore. Villagers have to back away. He's running out of room, and he's running out of religion as well, as the sacred sites are all being capped by Don Artie. Don Artie also banking 4 of those relics means that his trickle is just juicy in comparison. And with everything being exposed, it feels like Ciamgyic is close to just hovering over the G button and tapping it twice, because there really is nothing left here. Next to be on the hit list is going to be his base, and he just doesn't have the troops or the economy to defend this anymore.
Yeah, there's just nothing left for him at this point. He's down to 45 population, and a GG seems to be inevitable. Don Artie, like, worst case scenario for him is that he's just sitting on 3 sacred sites and he waits 10 minutes to win. But, as you said, there is just minimal hope over here for Ciamgyic to recover. He's got no army, basically no economy, and Don Artie also has the quality advantage in his army.
Yeah, and now after all that gold being sunk, he has the eco advantage as well. There's just nothing left. This Arbitre's effort being renewed, but too little too late. It feels like you're never getting out of your base at this stage, and death is a simple inevitability, one that Ciamgyic will willingly embrace.
What a game this was. Neither of the players played a very, very clean game here, but ultimately it came down to whoever was able to do a lot of damage with those raids. And when we look back at this game, interestingly, that very ineffective, or seemingly very ineffective raid from Don Artie was the key factor. Like, he tried to save his knights so badly, he could have done a lot more damage, yet he still was able to do just so much with those knights. Imagine what would have happened if he didn't plan to just save those knights out there. And you see those drops in the villager count for Ciamgyic, just 2 gigantic raids coming in. And from that point on, Don Artie was just able to capitalize on that better eco. Ultimately, there's 6,000 gold gathered in this entire game for Ciamgyic, and at some point he got like 6,000, as if he didn't even spend a single bit of that.
Yeah, and it's dumb, because look at the difference. Look at the gold rate. Artie has double the gold, so that passive gold was the difference. But the stupid fact of this is that Don Artie didn't have the guild hall. He never went for so he wasn't getting this surplus income, right? Ciamgyic should have been eco booming for most of this game, and it just felt like that night raid you mentioned that he done. Artie was in the business of buying time. Ciamgyic was in the business of buying gold, almost expecting a market crash, but no one told him this is not Stock Investor Simulator. This is Age of Empires 4. You have to spend to get. And in this situation, he did not spend that quick enough. As a result, Artie getting the lead and just essentially just pinning him in. It felt like Ciamgyic had put himself in this wonky scenario where he didn't use his initial investment to gain more, right? And yes, he gained more gold, don't get me wrong, but what I mean is gain more ground. I think that's what it came down to, and Ciamgyic could see that very clearly, that he was running out of easy wood, his food was way too stretched and easy to expose, and the gold was, well, basically irrelevant in this game when you have 6,000 surplus. It just felt like it was becoming an inevitability, and I think it really comes down to the fact that Artie made this hard pivot off of Spearman, once he saw that Ciamgyic doubled up on the Spearman production like he did, right? Once he saw that, he was like, I'm just going to build knights because they run faster than you. You know, like horse beats foot in this situation. And it almost just felt like if we took the mid-game 10 minutes of this game from the mid-game, we could just put the Benny Hills theme tune on and it would fit perfectly, because it just felt like Ciamgyic was running in circles on himself.
Highview, the home map of Ciamgyic over here. Up north, we're going to have Don Artie playing as the Rus in blue, and to the south, we're going to have Ciamgyic playing as the Mongols in red, spawning quite far away from any forests out here, so it's going to take some time for him to find a suitable spot for that town center.
Yeah, this can be one of the very tough things about this matchup. It's something that I was looking for when we got into the generation, is both of these civs are very wood reliant for a lot of what they want to do in the early mid game. And if you look at it, Don Artie kind of hit the jackpot here, right? He's got the 2 wood lines close by, then look at the back of his base to the north. Everything is retracted and safe. This is actually a dream spawn against Mongols because not much of what you need is exposed. Like, having these gold veins like this is also a bonus, but you don't care, right? You're Rus. Do you really need gold? No, you just want access to big wood lines and safe areas to expand in. And I could see a very easy situation in which Artie could wall off this area and have a fully protected economy against the raids of Ciamgyic.
Absolutely. And going back to the previous game, he didn't wall at the beginning, but after that he started walling up his gold mine. So based on that game that we have seen, and based on how active Ciamgyic was with raids, he now needs to know, and he now needs to prepare for the fact that Ciamgyic is going to try a lot of raids from multiple directions. He needs to get some walls going, especially on the right side, because that's just so easy to pull off. He aggroed 2 wolves on the right, as he's just now starting to add the second scout from the hunting cabin. He has already added 1, I think, from the town center. So we will have 3 scouts for him pretty soon. Whereas on the left side, it's going to be 3 wolves aggroed by Ciamgyic's Khan. But when it comes to the Khan, there's also going to be a problem with that, and that is going to be killing the deer, because the Khan needs 3 arrows to do it, as compared to scouts only needing 2. So it's going to take some time for him to do that.
That's actually a very fair point. One that's quite often overlooked. It looks like it's going to be double scout now coming out. Wow, that's actually a very interesting play by Ciamgyic. You notice that, right? Like, it's something that a lot of players don't do, is because he positioned his TC right next to the Uvu, you can double up production. So he doubles up the scout production because, of course, keep in mind that the village... I know that sounds broken with the villagers, but it's kind of balanced by the 150 stone cost. But he gets double scout out, and now he can move out, and he can address those deers you were talking about. So he will be able to match the pace. And keep in mind that Don Artie did slow down his own economy because, like you said, he went for that scout out of his TC, so it's not like he's 1 villager up. I say that.
Yeah,
somehow he's 2 villagers. What? Did Ciamgyic miss? I mean, he moved the TC at the start, but that should be 1 villager, not 2.
I think the idea is that it took quite a lot of time for Ciamgyic to set that TC up. So it took quite a lot of time for him to find this wood line, drop it over there. He also added the double scout. So probably it's because he took too much time to build that TC. And that's one of the biggest problems when it comes to the nomad start of the Mongols. You can find a suitable starting town center spot, but you can't really take your time finding one, because the more you wait, the more villagers you will lose.
Yeah. I guess the recovery point is what we just talked about, though, that you can double up villager production if you want with the stone. Of course, most Mongol players won't do it with the stone. They do it with the scouts because it's understandable, but 150 stone out of your early economy, obviously one of the big benefits is you want to be able to drop a racks or stables and just build up an army quicker than your opponent. So I don't expect Ciamgyic to spend this stone on catching up on the eco side of things, because it would leave him vulnerable to a feudal age rush from the Rus. I'm going to keep saying that. It's catchy now. It's kind of...
Perfect timing here for Ciamgyic. He cleans up all those deer just before Don Artie would actually come in here, and he was able to limit Don Artie to 250 bounty, which is quite a decent accomplishment here on Highview, which has so many huntables, especially the wolves, to take down. So him being able to limit the Rus player to 250 is exceptional, although Don Artie shouldn't be disappointed. 250 is what you want to get here so that you get that tier 2 bounty unlocked.
Yeah, for me, like, tier 2 is the deal breaker. If you can get tier 2, which is very feasible, you're happy in the game. It's similar to the way you think of HRE, right? If an HRE player gets 2 of the relics in the Radiance Cathedral, thumbs up, you're really good about the game. It's the same with the bounty system. The more important thing past 250 isn't necessarily even the gather rate increases, the generation of the cabins. It's actually just having this surplus gold sitting in your economy to get 1 or 2 researchers quicker. So it shouldn't hurt him too much, especially considering he went for the Golden Gates, so he's going to have, like, the most broken Tech 2 landmark in the game to benefit him. I still think that this landmark is pretty insane. The only reason it seems a bit more logical right now is because of how nerfed the Horse Archer spam Castle Age Rush meta has been kind of crippled in the ground. I still rate the Golden Gate is probably the best landmark in the game for a Tech 2, just because it keeps relevance throughout the entire game.
Indeed, it's very, very relevant, and it just gives you unparalleled flexibility in Feudal Age. So you can really use this to compensate for the fact that you don't have map control and you don't have access to your gold mines. You can use this to facilitate a very effective fast castle, and we're likely going to see something similar to that. It's going to be archer range and stable, but I would be very surprised if this was knights, simply because Don Artie isn't going to have a consistent gold income, so he would need to keep selling to get knights. But it's possible it's going to be like a horseman archer play into a relatively fast, semi-fast castle.
Yeah, and I don't think you can play into the knight strategy, because I think when you play that on high view, you're looking at hunting cabin spams, and this is literally the worst civ in the game to do that against. Yes, they did nerf the bounty that you get from burning buildings. A mega lol nerf, by the way. But it's still extra resources going the way of your opponent, and they're very happy to actively seek to burn those down, right? Because it's 100 wood cost to you, and then they get 25 food and 25 gold for doing it. So it's very beneficial for the Mongols. If you ever want to do a hunting cabin type strat as the Rus, make sure your opponent is not Mongols. That is number one on the boxes of ticks that need to be checked before you're able to do it.
And it's part of the reason why Mongols, even if they weren't as powerful as they are right now, would be an appealing choice on this map, because Rus is a very good choice for this map because of all the hunt. And as you said, Mongols is basically a counter-civ to the Rus in many ways here. Ciamgyic did lose one of his scouts to the forces of Don Artie, and now he will be able to retaliate in the middle. So one scout lost on both sides, and it looks like indeed it's horsemen and archers coming out from Don Artie, whereas on the other side it's just going to be double archers coming from Ciamgyic.
Interesting. So obviously you have double arch at the moment. I always look at, when I think of Mongols in this situation, I always look at an archery range like this, like a 1.5 multiplier, right? Because obviously you can't consistently forever keep this double production up. So it will backfire at some point. I wouldn't mind just seeing him cruise a second archery range. It depends how much tempo setting he feels he needs in the mid area of the map. It just might be hard to justify, because I find going hard into archers on high view can be very counterintuitive, just because of how stripped of vision you feel. And it's not the old Mongols where you paid 70 wood to get that vision. Now it's 100 wood. And if you're going for even one, maybe two of these archery ranges, that means a lot of your wood economy is already locked up and prevents you from actually stabilizing control via the outpost network that the Mongols love.
Ciamgyic also has a couple of scouts moving in on the right side here. These won't be able to do that much damage, but one thing that you can do with these is that you can spread them out in those stealth forests and give you perfect vision. This is something that Don Artie can also think about with his own scouts, so that's a factor to consider. And Ciamgyic is going to spot the horseman. That's the first thing for him. He needs to react to that some way, and that has to be either his own horseman or spears. Looks like he's going for spears, dropping a barracks.
Yeah, I like this more. It balances that wood economy we were talking about. So now you might have some flexibility for outpost drops, because these spearmen cost a little bit of wood, but it's only 20, right? It's a lot cheaper than the archers. And you can garrison them in that situation to find additional value. So I wouldn't be surprised if he plays for mid-map control off the back of buildings eventually. The interesting detail to look forward to moving on from here is whether both players are going to try to engage with pro scouts, because I could see that being feasible before Ciamgyic done this drop of the racks in the archery range. But now it looks like pro scouts won't be accessible to him, which means he has to control the mid of the map. And right now, Artie is pushing him all the way back to his base, and it looks like he's also invested in Magadai, which is a very risky choice up against the horseman. If you can not keep the Yam movement speed going at all times, you're going to lose them in the blink of an eye.
And they are also quite vulnerable against mass foot archers. And the most important thing for Mangadai is that they're very expensive. So both on the stone cost if you use double training, but also on the food and gold cost. So really, you need to get those Mangadai to stay alive, and you really need to get insane value from them, because especially for a feudal age economy, they are just insanely expensive. Looking at the ecos, neither of the players are apparently going into Castle Age. Don Artie just now moving all the way south though. He's the one with the map control, and once again he could do the same thing that he did before. Just try to leverage that with the hunt being taken in front of his base.
So this is why I thought this would be a very interesting matchup here on Highview, because I think Mongols being picked when you've picked Rus sets this precipitation that you need to play hard into feudal. So then Artie is inherently going to be doubling down on feudal, and then Ciamgyic has to react to it to stay in feudal, right? So there's more or less this ripple effect, a back and forth. You activate my trap card, you activate my trap card, and the end result is that we're going to have a very, very long feudal age, or one of the longest I expect us to see today, because I think this matchup and this map choice specifically makes it imperative that you are present with a military force for the first 15 minutes more than anything else in this game.
Ciamgyic is able to leverage those Mangadai now, picks off one villager, as Don Artie is assembling a push against his base. One thing that Ciamgyic has is a fairly big army over here. Spearmen, archers out, and the Mangadai, accompanied with the scouts, will give him a very nice way to just keep harassing those berry villagers and, more importantly, control the gold mines.
But look what's happening from Don Artie. Don Artie's riding in. Spearmen looking engaged. A lot of horsemen here. Needs to peel them back, reveal the spears and the archers, and then turn around these archers. Although they've got Yam to move quite quickly, the horsemen with the bonus damage and the movement speed can stick on top of them quickly. Keep backing up.
And
archers are going to pick them apart. I mean, I don't see how you can turn around at any stage here. You're going to give a lot of ground. The only good news for Ciamgyic is he has a very stacked economy close together, so he hasn't got these exposed pockets that are going to be picked off, and it means that Artie will have to back away.
Artie does back away as Ciamgyic is coming back for the raids, but there were considerable losses over there for Ciamgyic, and the bigger concern for him is that he's once again pinned within his own base. So, very similar to the previous game, he's struggling to move out simply because Don Artie's army is just a little more suitable for these open field engagements.
Yeah, and if you look at the layout of his resources, he was never able to build in a way that benefits an aggressive stance, right? Everything about the resource generation and where he positions TC is defensive. It's pushed back. I like this play around Uvu. I expected this play out of him, the pastures being dropped, right? Like, this is an economy Uvu entirely. Yes, he's got military buildings here, but the purpose of it is to inflate your economy, and it also allows him to go without pro scouts. But because of that berry bush access that Don Artie got most of the value out of, he was able to do this exact same thing. He wasn't pressured into going and rushing into pro scouts and playing a more kind of defensive and lackluster militarily, at least, feudal age. And I think that's the big difference. You can see it once again. Artie's already moved out with his deer, and because it's clustered between the wooden fortresses and his main base, Ciamgyic can't risk running in there with Magadai, or he'll just get picked apart.
Speaking of which, he lost one of his Magadai out there to a horseman. That's a cost loss. He's gonna try to harass these villagers, but as I said, there's a wooden fortress nearby, and this army is just not big enough to engage underneath a wooden fortress here. You might be able to do some harassment, but that's basically all that you can accomplish.
I mean, the Magadai's doing pretty decent work with the Khan. You gotta remember that Khan does 4 damage, the Magadai does 7. Horseman's gonna come out to scare him off this time. This time he would lose that Magadai. But still, sniping down 1 or 2 villages isn't too bad of a trade in that situation, especially if you didn't intend to continue into Magadai, which I don't think Ciamgyic is going to anymore. I just think it's a sunken cost to build more of them. Instead, it's just going to be doubling up on normal archers, as he has 2 archery ranges now.
The gold miners were harassed quite heavily by Don Artie, but there was not a single villager lost, so Ciamgyic's reaction was nice. And that defensive tower is keeping away the forces of Don Artie, also expanding the Yem network. And if you look at the ecos now, and if you look at the current resources, suddenly you're seeing a massive amount of resources banked up by Ciamgyic, and oftentimes the efficiency of the Mongols' economy is overlooked. So now we're seeing just a ton of resources banked up, and once he gets to Castle Age, he's gonna have that Lancer power spike, whereas for Don Artie, he's just nowhere close to Castle.
Yeah, I'm glad you highlight the economy, because like I was mentioning a little bit with the pastures, right? Like, these are incredibly powerful tools when they're near an Uvu. But the Uvu itself is the early game economy, because you're able to actually double up your military production while also saving out the other resources, like, because you're gathering passive stone, right? Like, essentially, you have to think of it as a long-term investment. You're paying 150 wood for a structure that gives you 1,500 resources over time. That is a huge booster to the first 10 minutes of play for Mongols, and is exactly why he's going to be cruising into a castle when Don Artie is just looking to double up in feudal. And it means Don Artie is going to put himself on the clock, and he's going to need to be in position with his army to exploit the fact that Ciamgyic is about to go ultra greedy, as he has the resources required to now go for that Castle Age.
And once he gets to Castle Age, with the step adopt, his economy advantage is just going to grow even bigger, because that is one of the best landmarks when it comes to Castle Age. It's an immense amount of gold income increase that you can grab with that. Don Artie now is moving out, but one thing that's a little concerning for him is that it's not like Ciamgyic's base is undefended. There is multiple defensive towers. Looks like 2 more Magadai were added, as we have 15 archers back at home. Don Artie can probably take a good fight over here. The question is how many units he will have alive after that battle to kill villagers with.
Exactly. It's going to be a tough one. There is a lot of horsemen here. And the archers are showing themselves. They're teasing right now, but there's enough spears here to deter him for the moment. He's waiting for his archers to arrive. And look how fast they are because of that Yam movement speed. Scout gives full vision of what's happening. He's trying to interrupt the build-up. Stops it from continuing. Step readout still being constructed by a few of the villagers, though, as they return to do their duty. Army is going to fight. Holding in a choke point, really, though, a self-created choke point. His horsemen are not wrapping around right now. The archer count is at least in favor of Don Artie, but now the upgrade is there. It means that he has about 30 seconds before these tech-ups come into place, and that's when it gets scary for Don Artie. So Artie goes deeper. Thinks about hanging around underneath the TC. A little bit too hesitant, though. Moves across, looking to burn down the outpost instead, because then he can deny the gold away, and it means his step readout is going to be all but useless. Archers will keep the other archers
Some men-at-arms are popping out.
He's going to need him fast. The problem is, like, how much time are you missing gathering right now, right? Because every 30 seconds, this step readout is sitting here looking pretty, doing nothing else, is hard felt.
And it's an absolute disaster because the power spike units that you're looking for in Castle Age, the knights, the men-at-arms, they all cost gold. So the best way to stop a Mongols player from utilizing that is just denying the gold. And if you look at the resource bank from Ciamgyic, he's got no gold, not even enough to make more than the 3 men-at-arms he's got queued up. And at this point, if Don Artie just keeps up the pressure, he could just force his opponent off from gold and just not let him get any of those powerful Castle Age units out.
I'm telling you, this is a problem town central right now. He gets one of the man-at-arms out, moves out a few of the archers. Now in vet status, they might be able to clean up Don Artie's army, but Don Artie, he's just trying to cover himself. But what is he covering for is the question, because he's being sniped in his own base by the Khan and the Magadai. He's building a small force. This was not the move I was looking for out of Artie, though. I think he needed to buy time to recover and get his own castle, but instead, he's going to be pushed back. Now the step readout can get to work, and it feels like Artie is miles behind Ciamgyic.
Yeah, the problem is that now it's a cleanup with the veteran archers out there, and from this point on, Ciamgyic is playing from a massively advantageous position. He's got the step readout, he's got the technology advantage, and as you said, Don Artie is still nowhere close to Castle Age, and he's also running out of hunts, so at some point he's gonna have to transition his food eco elsewhere, whereas his opponent already has the pastures set up.
Nah, you can just see he's just been doubling down on these horsemen. These horsemen, the age of horsemen's about to pass, my friends. We're arriving in Castle Age, okay? Get some heavy armor on and do your duty on horseback, not just this naked man with a spear, which does sound somewhat majestic, but in the grand scheme of things at this stage in the game, is not going to be as effective as you'd like.
So you're saying that you can't win games with naked men and spears?
I mean, it depends how distracted your opponents are. You know, essentially there's a lot of peni flying around in that battle. Alongside the big spears, but I don't. Big spears are big spears, basically, but I don't think it's gonna last. You know, we talk about how powerful horsemen are. Maybe this is a bit of a horseman meta, but I think 16 minutes in the game, your time has passed, and Artie now trying to catch up. He'll finally build the high trade house, but my God, does this feel late? This is Gandalf arriving at the end of the movie, the second, the Two Towers movie element of late, right? Like you're in the final moments just before the credits. The question is whether the credits are going to end with your defeat or your victory. And this riding could be a big difference. Look at this move. Artie round the back with a horseman. The naked men are not done yet. They unsheath their spears and ride in, but they'll be scared away by one man in armor. This really is playing her out like kind of, you know, the European powers go and visit the natives. This is just a single armored cladded man is enough to scare away a giant contingent of horseback.
And a couple of non-armored archers are moving up for Ciamgyic. They killed 3 villas on that wood line, and there's gonna be 2 more on the berries. They get cleaned up, but at this point, every single villager you kill is just so valuable because see the men-at-arms are slowly getting to the base.
They found them! They snitched! They found all the villagers in the back!
No!
Oh no! Run, Artie, run! Run quicker! Where's your wheelbarrow tech? Oh, you did get it. They don't feel fast enough.
Oh, boy.
Oh, and now the man-at-arms are here, so the horseman can't even have fun with the archers. He did at least complete the tech up, but ouch, did that hurt now. 5 villager lead all of a sudden for Ciamgyic, and there's still more villagers dying because the Khan is riding in like a psychopath. Good lord.
At least the Khan gets taken down, so there is some positives about this one. But oh, now the villagers are running into the archers. No!
I mean, you say you got taken down, but I'm pretty sure that's one of those kind of memeful moments where as you sink into the ground as the Khan, you've got a middle finger held up, right? You know the Terminator scene when he thumbs up on the way in? It's just one of those, but it's a middle finger to your opponent as you go down. Like, you're happy with that if you're Ciamgyic. Just look at your economy right now as well. Not only do you have an eco lead in terms of villages, but you clearly have it in terms of surplus that you can now use to build additional military buildings and then push out an even bigger army.
Don Artie aged up with the high trade house, which is actually going to give him a very nice food eco with those deer, but it also means that he won't be making warrior monks, as in the middle, he's going to take a quite disadvantageous fight against all those men-at-arms out there. Not exactly sure what's going on his mind, but that's going to be all the naked men getting taken down by the armored boys.
Yeah, they should have wrapped themselves in something a little bit more, I don't know, defensive. He's bringing out the knights now, but the problem is there's a few spears in the mixer here. Remember, they are powered up by the Yam movement speed. Full yamification will force him away, and it forces him off of the board that he was then setting up for. And also, look on the southern side. Look what Artie's doing. He's utilizing the same strategy he did in the previous game. He's trying to play south side away from the vision of Ciamgyic, but this is very risky. This is dancing with death. 19 villagers down here, and if they get spotted at any stage in this game, all of them are going to die.
And not only will they die, but also the hunting cabin would be burned down, and that's going to give some extra resources as well for Ciamgyic, just like we've seen in the middle. And the thing is that Ciamgyic had some scouts lying around, so even though these hunting operations are surrounded by stealth forest, it's still rather easy for Ciamgyic to spot those if he starts moving up with towers, if he starts moving up with scouts, and now those gold miners are just ready to be slain over here. Don Artie has just 5 army over here. How is he going to stop all these men-at-arms?
He doesn't stop them, he just runs. Run! Faster! Quick! But now you're going to give gold and food over. They're going to burn that down. Outpost also being set up in the center. That's going to be a secondary outpost, which means it's very hard to sneak by anymore. You can see that Artie has wrapped around on the west side with 3 of these knights. The question is, can they really do enough damage? Or is more damage going to be done to you? He spots the villagers! Run! Book it! Into the forest!
He needs to run to the left, because up north, there's just one death trap out there. He's running into that stealth forest, but really, it just feels like these villagers are just running for their lives, and the moment Ciamgyic comes up with 1 Lancer, these would all be slain.
Oh my god, but look at Artie. Got at least 4 of the villagers in Ciamgyic's base. So he's sniping out. Ooh. It's all a ruse, a distraction. He goes deeper. Ciamgyic, he retreated the wood line, but he didn't think he needed to move the food line. He's being sniped out even more. MVP Knights. The 3 musketeers right here, clean and house. And they'll finally be put to the sword. Look at
that is crazy. The Khan finds the villagers, and this Khan has 12 damage. This guy means business.
Oh my!
And he's going to snap all the vills.
I don't know. Is he firing arrows or ballista shots right now? They are just getting picked apart. Ciamgyic's like, screw this. The rest of you into the base. Get the gold line. I'll clean up here. And they will clean up in that base. That gold line hasn't been retreated by Don Artie. Artie's in trouble. Ciamgyic miles ahead right now. He's over 15 villages up over Don Artie right now. And Ciamgyic is relentless with the pressure here. And you can see Artie, he can't forfeit. He needs all the gold he can get. He might be forced to forfeit in a different way at this rate, though. And yeah, it's going to be straight away. No hesitation. He goes, oh, crap. I don't think I saw that. A bunch of gold miners gone, and his hopes of winning this on high view gone with it. We are going to even this one up. 1-1.
Yeah, that was just absolute pain at the end for Don Artie. Not only did he lose the villagers that were trailed by the Khan, he also started losing the villagers that moved out for a hunt before. As you said, the moment they get spotted, they all get killed, and there was 1 Lancer killing them. So maybe the reason why Don Artie didn't react to the gold miners being killed is because he was just too busy trying to save the villagers elsewhere, and there's just a dramatic decline at the end in the villager department. Ultimately, Ciamgyic 127 to 94 kills, and I kind of get the feel that this KD was really just swung in his favor by all those villagers killed in the end.
Yeah, honestly, like, there was a clear intent by both sides, like, let's butcher, but the fact that I mean, people have talked about the strength of the Khan once you reach Castle and beyond, and I think we just got a pristine example of that. 1 unit just running down and butchering that many villages that quickly just gave such a lead, and it felt like Don Artie, he was trailing for so long in this game. I like the idea of these pocket economies, but we see the weakness up against Mongols as this game goes on. As you start to reach into those neutral areas of the map, those hunting cabins become huge liabilities. They cost you 100 resources to build, and when they get burnt down, not only have you lost 100 resources, but your opponent has got 50 resources. Not as much as they once got, of course. It used to be they get 50 food, 50 gold, but it still adds up quickly. And not only that, but because you ran out to these risky areas of the map, you are exposing your economy. Even if it gets away, they have to run miles. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if the remaining Rus villages that migrate off the map at the end of this have calves the size of, like, biceps, right? They're so swollen at this point because they've been running all game, it felt like. And it just, in the end, it's just so simple for Ciamgyic. It almost feels trivial. Those 3 knights at the end, mini MVPs in the loss for Don Artie, but it just shows you how much simpler it is for Ciamgyic. He keeps everything condensed. There's no stage of this game where I looked and went, Ciamgyic really needs to take risks with his economy. No, instead, he just retracted it, stayed inside, refused to come out, and just lets the big swole military boys take care of the rest.
We're jumping into game number 3. On Hill and Dale, decider game between Don Artie and Ciamgyic. On the right side is Don Artie playing as the Abbasids in blue, and Ciamgyic is going to have the Holy Roman Empire playing in red. A civilization that will just be very happy if they can secure the majority of the relics being quite evenly balanced between the players. So nothing to be disappointed about for either side over here. But as you said, Abbasids, somewhat static army composition, but it's also a civilization that recently got boosted. Not only with the berries, but also their age-up times have been reduced by 15 seconds each, so it doesn't take as much time for them anymore to age up to the next stage.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of ages, let's talk about the composition of what an HRE player does in Castle. If I was to give the question, what does an HRE player like to build in Castle Age? Straight away, without hesitation, your response is going to be knights, right? And that might allow a pocket strategy of those camels I mentioned, which are, well, kind of, getting the ass end of the stick a lot of the time. Not very impressive a unit, but a small composition of those in the mix for the camel on ease, negating 20% of the damage of these knights, could actually be very impactful in the skirmishes at the beginning of the castle age. So we'll have to see if Don Artie plays into that with some sort of dynamic force to go alongside it. Because one of the cruxes of this is you're going to have find a way to keep up with those knights, right? So you're going to need some sort of cavalry of your own. And I feel like we don't really see abbesses playing that much into their own knights, aka the lancers.
Yeah, I agree with that. This is one of those matchups where the camels could actually be somewhat relevant, but even if they aren't, you also have to consider that the Abbasids have some of the best spearmen in the game, so they do have a pretty nice reaction to the cavalry play of the HRE. The bigger question is going to be, if this game goes long, how are they going to react to the heavy infantry of the HRE? Because that's something that they will struggle a little bit more with. Like, the HRE men-at-arms and mangonels could be a scary composition to fight against.
Most definitely. I think one thing the Abbasids do have going for them is someone we have to always consider, because I think it's genuinely their single biggest power, is their ability to build siege weapons out in the field, right? Like, we can never underrate that. So there is this give and take. I do favor HRE slightly in like an Imperial Age type game, 40 minutes plus, but I don't think Abbasses are completely out, just because of that ability to build in the field. I think the things that make Abbasses and Mongols ridiculous, and have since the game released, in the right hands, with momentum, is the fact that after they take a fight, they can easily convert it into like instant pressure in your opponent's base. If you think about most civs, if you talk about the age of artillery, right, like we had Springles, then we had Mangonels, etc., it always relied on this footing where I'm taking a lead and then I'm moving these slow static army units across the map, building them out of expensive siege workshops. You don't have to worry about that as the Abbasids. You take a fight in the middle of the map, and then you instantly build like 3 Mangonels on the spot, or 5 Springles, or whatever you want. And it just negates so much downtime that a lot of other civs suffer from, to be able to then push forward off the back of taking a win in a fight.
Exactly. The key thing for them is that they can keep that momentum going, because they don't need to wait for those slow units to arrive. There is no risk of those being intercepted by a couple of enemy cavalry units. So really, their ability to maintain a certain momentum is immensely helpful. And of course, the other thing is that being able to make siege weapons yourself with your infantry is really helpful when you're defending as well. You might not even have the siege workshop going for you, but you can still make some siege weapons like Springles to defend against the opponent. We got the one Aachen Chapel being dropped by 4 villagers from Ciamgyic. It's actually a beautiful spot. It's not going to affect the gold miners though, but it's going to affect everyone else, including the berries and the hunt. So probably the best arrangement that he could have made given the spawn of the map.
Absolutely. I think gold is overrated for HRE anyway. It sounds crazy to say that. I mean, in terms of mining it, right? Because like, once you reach castle, you don't care about gold anymore, because you just get passive gold. That's your goal. So if everything else is buffed, you kind of stabilize your economy. One also really cool detail you might note there that Ciamgyic done, the original sheep he dragged to the eastern corner of his TC, so that he min-maxed the distance for the prelate to run between the gold vein and the food. So he was actually getting 1 or 2 additional holy inspiration buffs out every 30 seconds. Really small detail, but actually adds up very quickly. And now you can see, once again, he shifts the sheep over the west side, so it's in range of the Aachen Chapel. It's all about how you maximize your economy. Because I think someone that is still to this day being overlooked, the HRE, is they're an incredibly powerful early game eco. And that early game eco can be targeted towards a fast castle, but I think just the same way as people learn with the Rus, you can target another way. It can actually be used for a very strong feudal age timing. I don't expect to see it on Hill and Dale, but it's definitely something that people should keep in mind with this Civ, or more aggressive map types.
Yeah, like when we talk about the Ottoman Empire, they're basically the economy civilization in many ways. Because if you look at their unit composition, it's not like it's anything spectacular, but if you look at their economy, it just gives them so much flexibility. They have the super strong Dark Age with the Prelates. You can translate that to a strong Feudal Age eco with the Aachen Chapel, and once you get to Castle Age, Ragnitz Cathedral giving you gold, and of course then Pulse of Shrabi Imperial Age. Every single age, they have some of the best economies in the entire game.
Yeah, like, I don't know how much you follow like StarCraft, but like the story, there's the whole Zerg Protoss kind of, having a baby, creating the ultimate like evil alien race thing. It kind of feels like HRE are that in disguise, right? Because although they have this premium element to like being able to get the expensive units, because you're efficient early game economy, you can be the Zerg as well. You really can. Like, I've seen so many games where there'll be 3 archery ranges down at ridiculous timing for the HRE that another Civ can't match, and it allows them to just spam out and essentially just outmass their opponents. They don't need to win through this quality thing, because actually they do have access to quality. To quantity, rather. I just think it's like very easy to overlook that when you think about gold and passive gold and knights quickly and Imperial Age timings that are amazing. Everyone just always fixates on this premium element instead of this kind of discount element to the HRE.
Looking at the stone mine of Don Artie, that was spotted by Ciamgyic. He actually tried a bit of a harassment, but wasn't really able to yield massive results. The key thing for him is knowing that his opponent is mining stone, which probably makes it likely that we're seeing a second town center. Indeed, here it goes for Don Artie. He's got a stable going though, so he's gonna have a couple of horsemen coming out, but Ciamgyic has the head start in that department, and he could actually do some harassment on those villagers making the town center.
He's being counted out now as a horseman's going to come out. And although your horseman might look more pretty, it's no more effective than one that's countering you. We'll force him away. Nice move as well. Artie anticipated that. He was building the stable before the horseman actually arrived. So TC should be easily complete. And this is a cool TC. There's kind of different approaches when you talk about TC expansions. One way to go is I want to secure this extra resource. But it seems like Don Artie's strategy, he wants a condensed town center. Say that 10 times. For the whole purpose of like disposable villages, right? He wants to be able to have so many villages that he runs them out into dangerous areas, and if he loses them, he doesn't really care. He'll just fall back to his stronghold of villager production, where in every one of these TCs, people are humping day and night to make more people to work the lines in their economy. Creating a kind of weird, dark outlook on Abbasid society, aren't I? But really is what it's about. It's just about the churn. You want as many villages as possible. You have to remember that once you have fresh foodstuffs, you're paying 50 food, and you're buying one villager and getting one free, essentially, in this situation.
Yep. And it looks like Don Artie actually lost his mill on those huntables here, because one of the problems with those condensed town centers is that he's got limited map control, so the only way that he's going to secure the hunt for himself is if he keeps making horsemen. But on the other side, Ciamgyic is more than happy to just apply the pressure, force Don Artie to continue making horsemen and progress towards Castle Age. In fact, it looks like he isn't even going to rush that castle, instead adding spearmen that are just now appearing on the battlefield, and Don Artie is in trouble here.
Yeah, it feels so weird to see spearmen look like this. When was the last time you saw an HRE spearman look like this? You never really force them into these spears early these days. They're usually just looking a little bit later on in the game. But as a result of having them there, he can easily move in and deny this movement under the deer, which is going to strangle out Artie's food supply. Look at the berry bushes at the back. He's already depleted almost half of them. He's going to run out of food very quickly, and it has to be said that Hillendale, in this kind of configuration, is a limited area, but he moves out with the villages. He's had enough of this crap. He's like, screw this, peasant revolt, get him, boys. Shivs out, stabs down the spearman, and is able to then overwhelm the remaining horsemen. Ciamgyic did force him off the food, and it has bought him time, though. The question is whether Ciamgyic wants to continue to try and ramp up, or if he accepts the casualties he's incurred, and then just looks to rush into the castle. It looks like he might just be prepping for castle right now.
Yep, he brought in 2 more spearmen over here, so once again the villagers have to be pulled. And at this point, Ciamgyic gets the feel that he can just apply pressure with whatever he has left over here, and as he said, go into Castle Age. Don Artie is going to clean this up, but behind this, Don Artie has lost considerable amount of horsemen himself. He also had a ton of idle time with all of those villagers, and his opponent is on the way to Castle Age. The only good news for Don Artie is that he's got some horsemen to now try and control relics with, so it's going to be a little more difficult for Ciamgyic to start picking those up the moment he gets to Castle Age.
That's the worrying detail. Like, it's kind of interesting when you have these 2 eco-focused civs. In Ciamgyic's mind, he's like, oh, I need to kind of apply pressure. I know he's going to be, like, eco-greedy. But then Artie, like, if he hadn't been playing to this military presence, it might have just enabled Ciamgyic to freely pick up all these relics, because Artie might have played an even more kind of greedy eco style of Age of Empires. So it's kind of interesting to think that ripple effect when you put 2 economy-based civs up against each other, and how it has kind of, to a certain degree, backfired for Ciamgyic, as he's starting to lose mid-map control.
Indeed, that is the only advantage that you have when it comes to this full commitment to the Feudal Age Horsemen. And now we're seeing a Camel Archer pop out as well. As you said, Camel Unease could be a massive boost over here to the forces of Don Artie, especially because he's expecting some Knights to come in soon from his opponent. So being able to weaken their attack is actually something immensely valuable, as he's trying to vol off his opponent over here. In fact, more like trying to vol him in, trying to prevent those prelates from ever moving out.
Yep, it's going to give him a long wrap around, give him a choke point to play around. Now the Camel Archer arriving. The more important details, something we don't get to see too often these days. Plus 20 bonus damage to these spears. 3 shots to kill a spearman. Fantastic unit to have. Even 1 or 2 of them is good enough. Horsemen are going to engage. Camel Archer will dedicate itself to getting rid of the nasty spears. However, those spears do actually do some pretty decent poke damage as you are a cavalry unit, so he has to keep backing up, and it means he needs to actually block the chase, but no, not able to do so. So Ciamgyic will be able to stab it out and then get decent trades with the remaining spearmen, but Don Artie still holding that center, and he needs to. He needs to keep his opponent choked in now that he's teched up.
And he managed to kill the first prelate coming for a relic, so Ciamgyic did lose one precious prelate over here. He's bringing in one relic as we speak, but down south he's going to be walled in, and up north it's going to be the same thing. So basically Don Artie is just minimizing the surface where he can leave his base as he's looking to try and snipe that other prelate. Horseman trying to get close. I think he's gonna get it.
It's so worth it as well. Like, you can argue, oh, he's going to lose 1 or 2 horsemen, but now that's a relic sitting on the ground teasing you. You now have to interrupt your build rate of villages to build another prelate. That costs 100 gold as well. Not to mention the fact that, like I said, you have to deny building 1 villager, so you're losing additional resources in the future. It's really effective. And now look at this, the Camel Archer. The only thing hidden is the Knight, which means it can actually just target the Spearman. And although you eventually get for the Camel Archer, it looks like you're going to lose a Knight for it. And there's already more Camel Archers here, just negating the effect of having these Knights. And Artie still just chilling in the fuel age, but doesn't care because he has the Zerg factor working for it.
And he's got the 2 town centers working for him as well. And as long as the HRE doesn't have the relics in the Ragnates Cathedral, currently there's only 1 garrison. And as long as, you know, their villager count is relatively low, they don't have the Pass of Shwabia, their economy isn't extremely powerful compared to a player that has 2 town centers.
He's completing the wall in now. He's already done the north, he's done the south, and now it's time for the center. He's about to create a nice coffin for Ciamgyic to die in, a tomb. We're going to see his final days out. And these Knights, this is so frustrating. The cannon fodder nature of this, he can't even reach the premium units to snipe them out. The Camel Archers are cozy. The Knights are slowly being stung, just stabbed down 1 by 1. Camel Archers to get rid of
the
spears.
Camel Archers.
This is ridiculously effective. It's just these Knights feel irrelevant, and now the Prelates having to give their life to heal. These cost 100 gold each. You can't afford to sacrifice them like this. But he has no choice.
Absolutely wonderful play here from Don Artie. Like, he's not only killing the Prelates, but he's taking good fights against those Knights, because the Camel Archers are so effective against the Spearman, and with the Camelanese, those Knights don't do that well against those horses, and now Ciamgyic is completely walled in.
It's just problematic, because now if you take these fights near the walls as well, the Camel Archers can safely sit on the other side, and you can never attack them. He's going to lose one of these Camel Archers, but one's always there giving the Camelanese that has a decent AoE to it. And these Knights are getting frustrated. I mean, imagine losing out against just horsemen. Not feeling good right now. Needs to build the gates and get through. It's the only thing missing right now is it looks like Artie did accidentally back off with the villagers. So his horsemen are bailed on for the moment. More of these spearmen coming out, but it's buying time. Look at Artie's eco right now. He's cruising towards a castle age timing, all the while churning out troops, keeping his opponent pinned in, and still, despite the quick move up into castle, Ciamgyic still only has 1 relic and has no way of getting more.
Yeah, one thing I would love to see here from Don Artie is a tower right next to that wall, because that would make it very difficult for the opponent to break through, and that's where the Camels also come in very useful. Just trying to snipe those units once again, almost picking off the Prelate, and there is a tower here for Don Artie. And behind this one, love the way that he's moving out for a hunt, so he doesn't need to transition to farming eco, whereas as you're seeing for Ciamgyic, he needs to go for the farming, and that's something that you want to avoid as long as possible with the HRE. You want to focus on just getting into that fast Imperial, picking up the relics out there. You don't want to start investing into farms this early, but because he's just running out of resources inside his base, he kind of has to start farming, and things are just getting worse and worse.
They are, because look what he's done. I wasn't a fan of this. I saw he's moving 3 Knights north, and I was like, that's not quick enough. Look how slow they had to burn this down, and look at the move coming out. Artie is responding. He's going to put you back in your cell, Prisoner 108. You're not coming out anytime soon. And this is getting frustrating. I mean, Ciamgyic, it feels like you're wasting so many resources and getting way too little for it. The Camel Archer army is starting to build up, now up to 4. Before he was at least actually trading them out, but now it's going to be impossible to get rid of that Camelanese aura. And also, they do decent damage, 10 damage, negating 4 of that, of course, with the Knights. It still hurts over time, as we're seeing.
I wonder if the Camelanese actually affects the torch damage of the Knights, because that's a big factor over here. There's a villager repairing that wall, but if the Camelanese actually affect the torch damage as well,
no.
It makes it much more difficult. Oh, the villager gets sniped.
Yep, don't you just love that? There won't be any sense in it. I don't know how you club someone through a wooden wall with a sword and the wall's still intact, but we'll save that debate for another day. It looks like we'll finally burn through, but I don't know if this is enough Knights. There's just too many of these horsemen here. Tech Up's going to be complete. I wouldn't be surprised if Artie just upgrades his current composition and doesn't even switch over to Lancers, because this is good enough. It's the movement speed. It's just cannon fodder. And then you pick them apart over time. Camelonese is just making this so hard. 19 damage is what you're putting out compared to the 9 damage this Horseman. And this Horseman is 2 for 1 when you think about the cost. And it means he's never getting out of his base. He's trapped in here for eternity.
Oh, that is just so painful. And as you said, he's just flooding with cheap units. Don Artie doesn't even have to mine gold at this point because his entire army is just food and food. And he's just cleaning up those knights so effectively. He could actually think about mixing in some melee camels at this point because slowly but surely his horsemen are going down. But as you said, the efficiency of these fights were outstanding. And behind this one, he's the one with the map control. He's the one able to take the berries. And he's the one that still limits his HRE opponent to 1 relic at minute 16.
Look at how trivial this is. Like, we got rid of the Horsemen. Yeah, but what about the Camel Archers? They actually hurt more than the Horsemen, because you weren't aware. So he's going to be forced back in. He's like, yeah, don't come out here. Don't talk to me. I am a Don. All right? Show some respect for the Mafiosa, because now it's Lancers and Crossbows coming through. So everything is going to be answered. Ciamgyic, just everything showing, really, right? He's playing his hand very open. It's very predictable what he's going to do next. He knows he's running out of resources. Don Artie is going to be aware of this. You can see he already walled and then also outposted on the south side. So he's prepped on those angles. It's going to be very hard for Ciamgyic to breach, and he has finite resources to work with. In fact, I'm surprised that Artie hasn't just built a bosque at this point. Yeah, there it is. He's finally got one down. Imam's going to start moving out. They're going to capture the religious sites, and then they're also going to take those relics away. And once they're gone, Ciamgyic is just going to be a poor boy begging at the side of the street.
Gotta love the way that Don Artie is using that map control for the berries as well. And remember, berries were boosted, and you're also spending way less food making villagers, and this results in Don Artie banking up 2,000 food already. That is absolutely ludicrous.
Oh, God.
And he's doing that while spending it on camel archers that are very food heavy. Lancer is very food heavy as well, and he still has 2,000 food in the bank.
Yeah, and you know, the only thing that's getting heavy is the burden right now on Ciamgyic's shoulders. How does he come back? This series coming all the way to a third game, and Ciamgyic looking like he is about one bad fight away from losing it, because you can see that Artie, it's no longer even trades. He's starting to build an army up. He's prisonered you up, and now he's actually outmassing you. In fact, when we look at the military side, Artie almost doubles up Ciamgyic's military presence. And although you can say, oh, these are premium knights, they're really good. Oh, we got man-at-arms. Yeah, they're all counted. They're all counted. It's Lancers and it's Crossbowmen. That's good enough. Before we even mention the Camelonese we've been nerding out about for the last several minutes, because we rarely ever get to see Abbas's do camels and it actually work.
Ciamgyic is once again going to choose a different angle to move out with the knights, but now you get the feel that Don Artie could just run into his base the moment he moves out, because he's got the camel archers, and those are extremely effective when it comes to just running in and sniping villagers. So,
or
you kind of...
Or hear me out, you just repair it. You repair all the damage that guy's doing with one villager, move your army across, and in the meantime have the Spring will kill off all of his valuable knights. That does sound quite desirable, doesn't it?
It does. It definitely does. Ciamgyic is just going to react to the push on the north with a couple of palisades, but the villager was also picked off, so he isn't able to wall himself, which leaves him open from all directions. And as you said, the army numbers are just not there for Ciamgyic at this point. 16 army, and it's dropping quite dramatically as the crossbows and camel archers arrive.
Could this be the new horse archer? No, I'm not going to mill it. It's not that bad. This is definitely situational, folks. We don't get to see camels often, but this is a pristine game for it. I love the way that Artie understood this. Like we said, when you play HRE, if you're going to cast Lage Rush, you're playing Knights. It's the most valuable strategy. You need them to control the center mass and look to move out to those relics. But the fact that he read like a 2-page book by Don Artie has crippled everything you can do in this game. This hoorah to try and get out of the base is kind of a last resort. I think if you fail here, the game is very quickly going to come to a close. And the problem is this crossbow's already here. They'll move up, they'll ready their bows, and they'll start firing through. Prelet's just trying to negate the damage coming out from the outpost, but how can you negate the damage coming out from the crossbowman? He'll ride in, he'll try to get on top of him, but these are good trades nonetheless for Don Artie. His reinforcements have arrived from the north, south as well. They're going to pinch him on both sides, and Ciamgyic is about to lose the main army in the blink of an eye.
This was the worst possible fight Don Artie could have taken, because half of his army wasn't in position, and it still was so dominant from him. It just tells you how much ahead he is. It wasn't ideal that those crossbows were being beaten down by the knights, but of course, there is still a tremendous amount of damage output on those crossbows against the knights, and it is 72 population against 145. And because behind this one, Don Artie is building up a massive eco as well, so not only does he have a tremendous eco advantage already, he's continuing to expand that, and he's on the way to Imperial Age with the military wing, which would also give him the chance to pop the Camel support upgrade, and of course, boot camp. So 2 very powerful upgrades, both affecting all the infantry units, including those crossbows.
And meanwhile, Ciamgyic, let's have a look at what he's doing. Knight. Nope, that's it. Knights and and Knights on foot. So nothing's changed here. He dropped a second TC, but he's still 1 behind Don Artie. And Don Artie's not going to let that slide for very long. In-page complete. I reckon I give this 30 seconds before it feels insurmountable. Because then the upgrades will come. Oh, no, he's not even going to wait that long. Nope, Don Artie will take it. Ciamgyic's like, no, screw this. This isn't how this goes. I'm HRE and Hillendale. I should be Imperial Age. But no, he will be denied. Don Artie will boot him out 2-1.